Hello everyone, it's Marie from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. How is everybody? So I'm doing good. I'm very happy. Today we are going to do the retro stove kit that I got from Bentley House Minis, which is fantastic. I will leave a link below to her site. And also there's a video that goes along with this too that gives you step-by-step how to put together, but she does provide really nice instructions in here. So I've got the kit and the little accessory piece to the kit here. I've got my craft knife. I have some paints, so I'm kind of undecided still as I'm getting ready to put together what color I want it. And I did go online and look at some different retro stoves, which kind of didn't help because most of them were kind of boring looking. And so since I love blue and all things blue, I grabbed these colors out. These are my Art Alchemy paints from Prima, which I absolutely love, and they're metallic and they're very pretty. This would probably be the most retro type color, I think, this teal, but you know, we'll see as we go along. Of course, I've got my heavy black gesso, and I did spend some time putting a little bit of water in there and stirring it up, so maybe it'll go on a little smoother and not be, you know, the texture of pudding that got left out for a while. I really need to buy another thing of this, but this stuff's not cheap, so I also don't want to waste what I have if I can still use it. And then certain parts of it where it's going to be metallic, I've got my silver paint here. I also have, this is from Michael's, I think, or something, and this is a silver as well. And then there are some parts where, I mean, it's kind of like this two-tone sort of thing, where it's more of a cream color, which I don't have. I just don't. I did find like a white pearl, because every paint that I have is going to be metallic. It's going to be, because that's just me. So it's going to be a very shiny stove, you know, by the time I get done with it. But I did grab this out, and I do have, depending on how metallic my metallic comes out, if it's not quite metallic enough, I do have the Metallique wax in the brushed iron, which just does come out pretty darn metallic. And then I have this wax here, which is a white pearl, so it just kind of adds that metallic sheen to it, but it's pretty translucent, this particular one, so we can play around. And I'll probably, you know, once this is, I've got stuff put together and I'm at those parts where I'm ready to paint, you know, I do have the parts of the kit that we're going to free the pieces from, and I can use that and test some paints, I think is how I'm going to do that. So anyhow, that's that. And I, you know, may or may not have her video up on my computer over here on standby, just in case, because I do learn stuff better by watching it in some spots. But anyway, so I am going to take this stuff out of here, and we can see what we got. Okay, so we have instructions, and you know, it does kind of look like, oh God, it's all written. No, it's not all written. Oh, and there's the sandpaper. Oh, sweet. So there's pictures that go along with it that show you how to do it. You know, and like I said, it's very thorough, the way she does the instructions. So I'll be using those over here to the side. And so we have some sheets that are the mat board. So it's thicker. It's kind of like a chipboard. So I want to say that's about a 1/16 inch, because it looks, yeah, it looks more than 1/8 of an inch. But we have the pieces there with that, and we do have one sheet that is cardstock. So, and this has stuff like the little burners, and this is going to be similar to the way we did the keys and the locks, where you layer stuff to get that thickness, but you don't want it too thick, which is why it's out of here and not here, I'm thinking. Or like with this is rather delicate, so I can just imagine that'd be a little more difficult with this stuff. But all right, so we have these pieces here, so I am going to obviously leave these in here until which point we actually need them to cut them out. I'm going to kind of straighten this up a little bit. Oh, and I am going to use my Scotch Create tacky glue, and of course I have my Bucket-O clamps and my 1, 2, 3 blocks, because we are going to be, you know, gluing some pieces together for a double thickness. So that'll help weigh them down so that, you know, they're staying nice and flat. So this goes together as pretty as possible. And watching her with the step by step, you know, it looks pretty pretty nice, and you know, these will go together and fit, and it'll be fairly easy, I hope. So I'm going to do like a mixture of fast forwarding, because I do want you to be able to see it completely through, you know, so that you know how to put it together if you want one of your own. But you know, I don't want it to take 3 episodes. Considering that making a box took 3 episodes, this could. So just brace yourself for that. But yeah, I'll do my best. So, all right, this is awesome. Okay, so let me straighten some of this stuff up, and I'll be right back, and we will get started on this. Okay, so we are ready to embark. So from the accessory bag, I'm going to use this. This is very kindly provided, which I think was just so fantastic, because she thought of everything. I love that. To wipe the soot from the laser cutting process off of your pieces. So we will leave this out here. I am going to leave the sandpaper handy. I'm actually going to tear a small piece off, because I think we all know that I'm probably not going to cut these tabs perfect. So that way I can sand them off so everything's smooth, so I have the best shot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to build the base of it. So there's 2 pieces marked C, 2 pieces marked B, and 1 piece marked A. So I'm going to cut these out on fast forward, and then I'm going to glue these together. So it's going to go one on top of the other. With these, it doesn't matter, you know, which one of these you put on top, so long as they're both obviously matching up there. So I'm going to do that part on fast forward, and I will join you back once I've done that. And so this I'm going to hang on to, obviously, so that we can test some paint colors on that. So let's set this aside. I'm going to take these and make sure that I sand, you know, where I cut the little tabs. So even though I put a brand new knife and a blade in my craft knife, you know, me and the craft knife, and aiming these right never quite works. So I'll make sure those are nice and sanded good, and glue these together, and I'll be right back with you. So we are going to kind of sit these to the side in their weird little sculpture configuration here to give them a chance to dry. And then while they're drying, we'll go ahead and start on some of the other ones that are going to be double thicknesses, so they can get dried as well. Okay, so the next step is going to be building the oven piece that's going to go on the side here. So it is the 2 pieces marked D and the 2 pieces marked DB. So I'm going to cut those out. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wipe the edges. I'm going to sand just to make sure this is nice and flat. So I want everything as flat as I can, so this goes together as pretty as possible. So I will do that now. So with these ones, you're gonna put them like you see them here, because they're gonna be on, you know, either side. And so when you glue these on top, you want to glue this on top of the engraved letter D with these letters here, because this is what you're going to use to line your shelves up. So I'll do that, and I will clamp those since my blocks are erstwhile occupied. So now we're going to let all these dry real good, and then I will come back to you and we will start putting the base piece together, and then we'll do this together. So be back in just a minute. Alright, so these seem to be dry enough. So again, here we have our piece C, and I like these because they have the little engraved lines too that are guidelines for different things. So we are going to take pieces A and B now, and we are going to glue according to the instructions on the bottom of piece B and put it onto piece A. And you know, it's a square, and how would you know where the bottom is? Well, if you keep the letters upright, that gives you a clue. So that would be the bottom of this. Okay, so this is going to glue onto here like so, and there's going to be a little bit of a gap at the front, and that's because there's another piece for the front of the stove that will go along there. And then this guideline is going to be for the bottom of the stove, you know, base of the stove. So that is your other clue that it's going to be at the bottom. Because see, we have this nice little line here that's going to help us line something up. So when you're gluing these, you want to glue them so that your letters are to the inside, so that when your stove is finished, you know, you don't want to have to try to cover that up too, because it is engraved in there. So if you paint over it, chances are it may still show a little bit, just depending. We'll find that out. I've got the heavy gesso, so it ain't going to show, but you know, with a lighter paint it might. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. And you know, this is also another chance to make sure that you line these up straight when they dried, and if they're slightly off or something, you know, here's where you could take it and put it on your sandpaper. Just like with everything, you only want to go in one direction, because if you go in both directions, you'll round your corners off, and you don't want to do that. So, but this is nice and flush, so I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on the end of this, and I'm going to line it up on here. And make sure it's nice and flush to the end of this. You know, and along the way, of course, we want to remove any excess glue. Oops, as it falls right off. Great, brilliant. Okay, so let's put you back on there. Make sure it's nice and flush there. And then that's what these can be used for as well. You know, so you can line this up. It gives you a good 90-degree angle. And press that into it, make sure it's flush. If you want to make sure this dries flush too, you can put that there as well. You know, so these are real good for that. These are these 1, 2, 3 blocks are used in machining. So usually you can find them on Amazon under 1, 2, 3 blocks, but they are a little tricky to find out in the wild. You know, like Home Depot's not going to really carry them in the store. You can order them, but okay. And since that's grabbed a little bit, I'm going to go on these sides just to make sure. So I always like to make sure. So we're going to leave this guy here. We've got our 90-degree angle. Now this piece here is going to sit on top of this piece and next to this piece. So it's got this little notch here. This notch part is going to sit on the very top of this piece. So when we glue it, we're going to go ahead and glue on this piece, since this is the one that's gluing to the other piece. And put a decent amount of glue. You don't want too much, because then of course it's going to come squishing out and you're going to have to do the toothpick thing. Alright, so this piece is going to go here. And again, we want to make sure it's nice and flush on the back, because this is, you know, if you make a misstep at the beginning of this, of course none of your pieces are going to fit together correctly. So it's best to just take that extra second, make sure everything's nice and flush. Usually I'll put it down and do it that way, so I make sure that everything is straight back there. You just gotta be careful, because when your glue oozes out, it's gonna wanna sit there. Okay, so we're gonna take these and put that there and prop that, and we're gonna let this dry up a bit. Actually, we can probably scoot this up here and work on our other ones. Let me grab those, and we'll do that while this dries. All right, so I have our instructions out. One of the things that I like to do, by the way, that just kind of helps me personally when I'm doing something that has a lot of very detailed instructions, is as I complete each one, I mark it off so I don't get lost in what I'm doing. It just helps with that, so you make sure you haven't missed any steps either and that you're doing them in the right order. So we are at the part now where we're going to take and put the shelves on our stove pieces. So those are the ones that are marked E, so there's 4 of those. And then you can see on here it's got the engraved lines, and it also helpfully tells you which piece is going where. So we've also got EE, which is here. Now we do have 4 of those, we only need 2. So I'm going to cut the 2 out, I'm going to leave the other 2 in there so I don't lose them. So now we have these, so we're going to, obviously work on one piece at a time here. So these shelves here are designed to fit right here, and they're going to go right under, I'll hold this up so you can see. It's going to go right under the engraved line. So it's going to kind of cover up that E right there a little bit. And again, I'm going to turn it so that my engraved E is on the underside, so that there's less chance of, anything being visible once I'm finished with it. So I'm going to put those there. So you've got 4 spots marked E. You have the EE where you're using 2. Obviously this isn't going to go all the way across, so this is going to go on as well. And this here is going to go on its side, right? So you've got the narrow side coming up as opposed to flat like this. It's going to go this way because this is going to be like a rack holder, I believe. So we'll get those on there. And they should fit, really nicely from front to back. So once you put it on there, hold it up, make sure that it's not extending over the back or over the front. You want it exactly flush with both. Otherwise you're going to have a hard time later, getting the rest of it together. We've got these all on here. I've got them as perpendicular as I can. And like with this one, you saw sometimes if you have to kind of move it around and adjust it, seeing how there's not a ton of real estate that glue's going on, you'll end up kind of losing a lot of your glue. So I did go ahead and pull that off and redo it, and it's a lot more solid now. So I want to make sure these stay in there nice and solid. So, and then of course I took my toothpick and I got the excess glue from both sides of it, which also helps you to make sure, of course, that you're staying on that line the way you're supposed to. So give this just a minute to set up, and then we will put these together. All right, so these should be set up enough that we can put this together. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this and this together here, and of course you've got the engravings on this side as well. It'll help you line the shelves up. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put glue on these. Just going to get a little bit straighter on these 4, and then I'm going to line it up here. When you're doing stuff like this where you need to do right angles and you need to make sure things are flush, use your work surface, because your work surface is flush. So when I put this on, I can put it on like here, and I can still see the lines in there to line everything up, but I'll know that my back part is flush, because when you're working in miniature, I mean, even just the slightest bit off, and it's going to throw the whole thing off. So, you know, once we do that, we'll obviously put it this way too to make sure that bottom part is flush. But I'll do that now. Okay, so now this is nice and straight, and I'm going to hold this until it grabs real good, and make sure, you know, I may have to, because since I had to move them about a bit, I may have lost some of the glue, but we'll see. I'll get this cleaned out in here in the meantime from where I completely missed. With this as well, you can turn this on its side if you want, and you can very carefully place one of these on it. Just don't move it either side when you do, because it'll all collapse on you. So we're gonna let that set up real good, so I make sure it's nice and secure, and then we're gonna put it in this piece. So that should be good. So now we're gonna dry fit this just to make sure everything is looking good. So now this piece is gonna fit in here, and it's gonna go flush along this edge here, and it's gonna make up the oven portion of the stove. And just like with the other one, you're going to have a little bit of a gap in the front, but you're supposed to, because that's where the oven doors are going to go. So with this, we're just going to take it along this back part, and we are going to put glue along every surface it's going to touch. So back here and on these bottom as well. All right, so didn't make a terrible mess of it. So I think I'm just going to lay this down on its side, and I'm going to bring this piece up to it. It's probably the best way, so that I know I'm going to be flush on the ends. Because like I said, you know, if you get this out of whack, even the tiniest bit, you know, it's going to start throwing everything else off. And same with the glue, and that's why you want to make sure you get that glue out, because if you have something else that's kind of depending on that surface, then you're going to end up with extra mass that you don't want. And I have no clue how I got glue there. That's new. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's because I totally missed, didn't I? But yeah, once you paint it, you'll be able to see it. So make sure you get all that extra glue off of there. So we've got that on there. We've got our gap at the top as well. We've got our gap at the front, and it's nice and flush on the sides. So we're going to set this aside, let this dry, and we are going to get our next pieces. All right, so the next ones we're going to get are the ones marked F, and then AA and BB. So let me cut those out real quick. All right, so these pieces here, they are going to make up, you know, the main body of the stove unit here. So we have FF. This is one of the few where when you put it in there, it's not going to be up like this. It's going to be laying on its side right here, and it's going to fit flush with this and with the bottom. And it's got an engraved line as well, because we're going to use this one and the one that was on the piece marked B in here to line this piece up as the bottom of the stove. Okay, so this one, we will just put glue all over the back of it. And then we are going to lay this in here and make sure it's nice and flush, that we get any glue that's overhanging so that it doesn't interfere with anything later. And then this one, I'm definitely going to clamp, because, you know, you want to make sure these are all laying nice and flat. Because if they're not flat, you know, it's going to make it harder to fit some of the other pieces when we go to do that. Okay, so that's going to be clamped there. So give that just a minute, and then we'll do these. All right, so this should be set up enough where we can continue with this. Okay, so now we've got this little piece here. So what this is going to be, this is going to sit down here. and it's going to form a support for the bottom for this, so it makes it a little more sturdy, you know, and easier to line up and all that. So we're going to do one long side and one short side of this. It doesn't really matter which direction the letter is on this particular one, because of course it's going to be definitely well hidden. And with the small pieces, seeing how I'm rather clumsy, that's when I usually go for my tweezers. it just makes things easier. Okay, I'm going to put this right about, just kind of eyeball it in the middle, and you want it flush with the back and nice and straight as you can get it, because this is me we're talking about still. So put that in there, let that grab. That's why I really like the Scotch tacky glue, because it grabs quick. There's Craft Knife Chronicles on YouTube, and she makes the most incredible things with chipboard houses. I made one of her houses. It's like an advent calendar type house sort of thing, and you know, and as I'm watching her, she's putting this chipboard stuff together, and she's like holding it, and she's doing it in real time, and then she lets go and it's staying, and I'm like, whoa, that's like it's witchcraft or something. It's not. It's just really good glue, right? So I went out and got that specific one, and I haven't looked back since. It's my absolute favorite. Okay, so now we're going to dry fit this piece. When we do put it in, we want the letters facing down. So we're going to make sure that this is going to go in here and it's going to fit, and it's fitting nice and tight. If it's too tight, of course, you can sand it a little bit if you need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on this double A piece down here. Yeah, sure I am. Come on, out you go. And then I want to put it on this piece on the back and on both sides. Am I going to scrape most of the glue off putting it in? Yes, probably. But yeah, as long as there's enough to hold it secure, we should be all right. I'm thinking maybe if I do it kind of at an angle, but either way, I mean, after after watching me put the glue bottles the potion bottles into the desk, I think you all know where this is going. So I'm going to get it as close to those lines as I can as I put it in, just to kind of avoid making a gigantic mess out of things, because at least we'll have the back. Okay, so wipe your extra glue off the front, and then you're going to want to line it up with those lines so that you know it's nice and straight and where it needs to be. And it is, so get my extra glue off of there. There we go. And I think for this one I'm going to sit this in here and hope it doesn't go sideways, just so I can make sure it's connecting with that support at the bottom, so it'll be nice and level. So we're going to let this set up and dry, and then I will be back to you in just a minute and we will continue. Alright, so this is set up good. So now we have, I've already cut out and wiped down and sanded these pieces. Thought I was recording, apparently wasn't, so yay. But anyway, so we've got DD, we've got those other two EEs like we used in here, the two CC ones, and then we have the piece marked G. And then with this one, you can take this centerpiece out and discard it. You don't need it. Okay, so we have these ones out here. So these are going to make up kind of the body of the stove. So what she did, and what I think I will do as well, and I didn't sand that part down terribly well. I fixed that. Okay, is she went ahead and sanded the front of it, like the edges, and rounded them off, which I think I'm going to do too. Because once you get it, you know, on the actual piece, it makes it a lot harder to do that, because you just can't get your sandpaper in there right. That looks good. And so that what I'm going to do is, what she also recommended, is the back, since I, you know, rounded the corners on the front, yeah, I don't want to undo that by gluing everything to it. So we'll flip that around to its back here. And then with these, we're going to put glue on these and put them just like we did there under the line. And it's easier with this to put the glue on the piece rather than the little bitty piece. So we have these glued. These are going to be the little supports for the rack that go in there. So now on, this is piece G, even though I wrote a B, that means back, obviously. So with this one here, this is going to form the interior box of stuff. So when we put these on, we're going to put them with the CC facing up, and we're going to line it up so that it's flush with this here. So it's a nice smooth transition here, and you know, line it up with the top and the bottom of it. So I'll do those real quick. All right. And then this piece here is going to be going on top, and it's going to form the top of it. So the top again is where you see kind of this weird cutout. You'll see what that's for here in just a minute. So we're going to put glue on this piece down here. Actually, I think I'll put it on the oven so it doesn't go across that. And on these ones, we're going to make a nice little box out of it. Oop, if we, you know, don't drop it first. So just make sure these are lined up nice and square with this, and that it's sitting flush also. Okay. I'll give that just a minute. Okay, and so now we have our inner part of our oven here. So we're going to dry fit this into here, so it'll slide in here nice, and it's going to go flush with the bottom and the side, and here it's going to go flush with basically this spacer piece that we have put in there. And you want to make sure both thicknesses of this piece here are left open, because that's what, you know, the front of this is going to attach to, obviously. And so that's fitting real good. So again, this piece we're going to glue everywhere where it's going to touch, so it's going to be down here and the back, and then the front of here, and then the bottom of this. Okay. Okay, so there we go. We have our oven in place, which is looking fantastic. Okay, so now we need our little accessory bag here. And so there's these weird little metal things. And they may have some little magnets attached to them. Make sure those magnets, they're tiny, tiny, tiny. Make sure they stay in there. So these little weird shaped things are pin nails, and that's what's going to go in here, and that's what's going to allow those magnets, you know, to make our little doors close. So with this, let's see, we'll try this. Not sure. Yeah, it looks like they're connected pretty good there. There we go. Oh, nice and loose connection. Okay, so we're going to take one out, and we're going to put the other three back in the bag, and we're going to keep the bag closed so I don't lose any pieces of it. And so this pin nail here is what's going to fit in that weird opening. So see how you've got the head of it that sticks out, and then this weird opening has a place for that so that it sits flush. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some glue, and we're going to put glue in this spot here, and we're going to take our little nail, and we're going to sit that in there, and it should fit perfectly in there, nice and flush. And it does. You know, wipe off any extra glue, obviously. Okay, and that one we're going to let completely dry before we do anything else too. And I'm going to bring this up where you can see it. So see, the little nail fits right in there just perfect, and it's nice and flush with it. So we're going to let that dry, and we will put the doors on here next, I think. But let me read my directions. All right, so once again, idiot that I am, managed to not hit record on the stupid video. But all I did was, at this point, you know, once you have the oven stuff in, it's nice and dry, is when you want to paint the insides of it, because you can actually get to all of it, right? So I did do a coat of the heavy gesso in black, because I had taken the inside of piece G, and I do want to use the Sparks paint, but it's a little too translucent, so I figured it would not look as good. So I'm going to put this on top of the gesso. And so that is this here. It's Art Alchemy, the Finnabair stuff in Raven Black. And of course this was almost dried out too, so I had to put some water in it, and I really need to use these more, I guess. I don't know, but anyway, so I'm going to do that part now. And I did make sure I was recording this time. So yeah, here we go. We've got it. It's kind of hard to tell because I can't see in there very good, and I'm, you know, putting black onto black, so it makes it a little tricky to see the spots that I've missed. But at least now I know that, you know, if you're just peeking in, it's going to be hard to see the spots that I missed, so that works out. All right, so I'm going to go clean my brush off. We're going to let that dry real good, and we will move on to the next part. All right, so our paint is dry in here. So we are ready to move on to our next step, which is going to be putting the doors on this piece here. So it's going to be piece H and piece I. And then just like with the front of the stove, I'm going to go ahead and round the long edges on these, not the top ones, just because when we put this together and put this on there, we're going to end up rounding that top one anyway. But so just the long sides on here. And it's easiest to do it when you leave the pieces in because it makes it a lot sturdier. And it's not a dramatic rounding of it, it's just, you know, kind of knocking that edge back a bit. So now we can go ahead and remove these interior pieces here. So there we have it. So this is the one, the front part that we did our edges on. So again, we've got those pin nail spots. So they're going to go up at the top. And of course, this is going on here, so you want to match your opening sizes, right? So the largest opening is going to be up here, and then this is going to sit flush on here and flush with the sides. So we'll go ahead and put this piece on first, and we'll go ahead and put the glue on the actual piece here. It'd be a lot easier, I think. Everything is nice and flush on there. And your shelves will come up, you know, of course, to the bottom of this. Now mine are not exactly perfectly straight, which, yeah, I saw that coming, but that's okay. They're still more or less straight, so not too bad. And so now we have this piece here, so same sort of thing. We can round the corners once we have this on, but with this one, the difference is this pin nail piece is going to go towards the bottom, because this is going to, you know, the door, this will lift up, whereas these will come down. So same sort of thing, we're going to glue where it touches. So on here it's going to be these two sides here, and then it's going to butt up here to this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry completely, and then right here it'll make kind of a little lip, you know, because you've got this coming at an angle on this piece here. So once it's nice and dry where we're not going to destroy anything, we'll sand this down so that it's even with this. Okay, so this should be set up enough. And so I'm just going to really gently sand this so that it's nice and even. Now it's even, and so now I'm going to do the sides over here as well. I want this to match, so I'm going to go ahead and round these down a little bit like I did the other ones. So there we go. So this is nice and flush now, and there's a tiny bit of a lip. I might hit that a little bit more, but it looks really good so far. And so now we're going to do the top piece. Actually, no. Now we're going to put the pin nails in there. Duh. This is why we have instructions. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we'll grab these three little pin nail things out. And we'll separate these. And these are really easy to separate, so I just kind of wedge this between them and sort of force it in there. Kind of like an adhesive, I think, holding them together. And so this one had something behind it. These ones don't necessarily. So I'm just going to be a little more careful, and I'm going to put the glue up here against this edge. I'm putting a decent amount just because I want to make sure it holds those in there nice and secure. And of course making sure that they're flush as well with the front, because if it's not, your stuff's not going to stick. Your little magnet's not going to work very good. So there we go. Got all three of those installed in there. So we're going to let this dry while now we get the stuff to make the top of the range. All right, so for this part we're going to need O. There's two pieces marked P, Q, R, and S. So I'll get these out of here. All right, so with these, of course, we've got the two that are marked P. We're going to go ahead and glue those together. And we will do it so that the letters end up being, you know, on the inside of what we've glued, so we don't have to worry about the direction it's facing or anything when we put it on. Make sure there's no glue on the outside. We want these to be very straight, so I think I will put a 1, 2, 3 block on them, because I think if I try to clamp those, I'll mess that up somehow. Not that, you know, I have high hopes for this. Yeah, no, it's not. I guess I will clamp them. That's fine. Okay, and while we wait for that to dry there, we can go ahead and take the circles out of the R piece. These ones you leave in. These are just kind of etched on there as decorative. So we'll get these circles out of here. So now we can go ahead and take this piece, this is O, and we're going to put this on here, and it's going to just go right onto here, and then it's going to come kind of hook around this part that's sticking out here. So nice and flush, and so we're going to go ahead and glue everywhere it touches, so all along this edge here, and then these parts here as well. And this should sit nice and flush in that corner. We'll get the extra glue out because, you know, I always got to have extra glue somewhere. You know what my problem is? I just have no aim, I think. This is the deal. All right, and so now we are going to take piece Q. And so this is going to sit flush on here. This is going to go to the end. So it's going to stick out over here a little bit, but it's going to go to the end of this. This is going to be the support for the range top. So go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my little Q is on this end and facing in. So it's just one less piece where you can see the little letter on it. Okay. It's nice and flush with that. And then on her, she went ahead and painted this now, but I think I'll paint it once I put this piece on as well, just in case you kind of get to see in that way. You never know. So I'm going to take this one that we glued the two pieces together, and so it is going to sit here on this end, and it will be flush with the back. So see, you kind of got this sort of lip thing down here, so it's going to go all the way along this side, and it's going to stretch the full length of that side. So we'll put a little bit of glue on here, and you know what, we'll go ahead and put it on the piece, it'll be easier. I will give this a second to dry, and then I will paint this as well. And I'm going to do the same as I did in here, because ostensibly it would be the same. So I'm going to get out our black gesso, and I'm just going to do like the bottom surface and maybe just up a tiny bit, just in case you're looking at a weird extreme angle, because you may be able to sort of see it back there, you know. Just so it looks good, but I don't want too much stuff up here so it interferes with gluing that down. So do the black first, and then we'll do the sparks paint. And you know, we'll put a blob right there, right where it doesn't go. Oh, good thing I'm painting the rest of it, you know. So I'm just not good with aiming the paintbrush. Not even a little. So we're going to let that dry. I'm going to clean my paintbrush off, and then we'll put the rest of this part on next. Alright, so as you can see, of course, yes, this took way longer than one video. You know, I do like to leave all of the parts of putting it together in, because a lot of times people just assume you know how to do the stuff, and you don't, and that way at least you can see it, and you know, the chapter thing, you can skip through it if you don't want to watch, you know, all of it. But anyways, so this is the end of part 1. And so we've got most of it, kind of the main body of it put together. So we're going to continue adding on to that in part 2. So I'll see you then. Hey, Schiff. Bye.